part 3, unit 5, criminal profiling and serial killers. And we're tying psychology in with criminal profiling, which is just a topic that a lot of students are interested in. Matter of fact, a lot of students come to class and they're interested in psychology due to these shows like Criminal Minds. So let's look at this in more depth. All right, so what does it all mean? We looked at organized and disorganized crime scenes. Well, why is that important? Well, an organized crime scene will tell us something about the offender that will then help us create a profile and know who we're looking for. So a couple things. One, if it's organized, it's likely that they have an average or above average IQ. So this is a person that's pretty smart. All right, organized indicates relative intelligence. They're probably employed and actually quite skilled. You know, a lot of times, depending on the crime scene, you could tell whether the person was an electrician or maybe they worked on computers or some sort of skill that it indicates that based on what was left behind or how the crime was committed. That they are probably socially competent. Like the idea of a serial killer being like the quiet person that no one ever expected because they never saw them, not necessarily true. A lot of serial killers that are organized, they have some charm. They have that antisocial personality disorder, and they actually have quite a bit of charm and can win people over. And that's how they win trust and then take advantage of a situation. They probably have a car because they're employed and have some skills, and they probably drive to the crime scene. They go hunt for the victim. They're not just it's not random. They go and look for the person, and it's probably not near their house as a result. Um, they are obsessed with coverage of their own crime, and a lot of times they may be caught, and they have newspaper clippings of all of the crimes that were committed. So that's something else that you can see. Um, for example, Dennis Rader, he called himself the BTK killer, bind, torture, and kill. He put articles in the newspaper simply just to mess with the police. And you look at him like he was an Air Force veteran. He had a college degree in electronics, married, had 2 kids. He was the town dog catcher. He was a member of a church, and it was even president of a church council and a Cub Scout leader. So he killed at least 10 people over about a 30-year period, and no one had any idea that this guy was doing this. But very organized, able to taunt literally police for a long time and not get caught. So high intelligence. All right. So that's organized crime. That's where you can get with that. Now, disorganized crime scene says other things. Now, remember, not every criminal is perfectly a pure disorganized or organized. Both of these things can happen. In fact, I believe it was Ted Bundy who ended up getting caught because he was driving slow and kind of screwed up and ended up having a bunch of things in materials that he was getting ready to commit his next crime, and he ended up getting caught with them. So, it's not perfect, organized, disorganized. I mean, these are categories that exist, but they're not perfect. One, but a disorganized crime scene is more likely that the person is below average IQ. So, they haven't planned it. They probably don't have a stable employment record, so they're unstable employment. Probably, bouncing between jobs, no real skills, socially isolated, probably aren't around very much. This is more the typical profile that people have of what a serial killer would be like. They probably live close to the crime scene. They probably don't have a car. So wherever they commit the crime is probably close to where they live. One thing, and this is true in kind of both cases, but probably really strict discipline as a child, like bordering on probably abuse. That's pretty typical. Extremely anxious. In fact, they might have some sort of a speech impediment of that kind of holds them back. Right. And criminal profiling in general. So that's like what it tells us. Organized tells us this. Disorganized tells us these things. All right. So you got to sort on those. Make sure you can do the sort well. And then lastly, for this unit or this lesson, in one study, about 82% of law enforcement officers thought profiling was helpful for them solving the crime. And actually, about 15% of all cases are solved by profiling alone because they don't actually have a lot of physical evidence. All right, so that's it for that lesson. Go ahead, hit the practices, rock and roll.